About a month ago, it seemed like Donald Trump was virtually guaranteed to win the 2024 presidential election. Following his debate with Joe Biden, where, Biden performed disastrously, he was ahead in basically every single swing state poll by massive margins, a huge shift to the right from 2020. And he was even calling into question solid blue states like New Jersey or New Hampshire or Virginia, and possibly making them competitive. But after Joe Biden dropped out, it seems like the Democrats did a 180 and the Republicans have done a 180. Donald Trump, instead of portraying himself as a moderate, has done the opposite now and is starting to speak more and more to the opposite of what he needs. And the Democrats have been supercharged and have gained so much momentum by replacing Joe Biden with Kamala Harris. You can see that in the national polls, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. How Kamala Harris has been surging in the national polls. If you look before Joe Biden dropped out, Donald Trump had the clear majority. You could see Joe Biden take the lead like here and there, things getting a bit close, but following the debate in June, he exploded, especially after his assassination attempt, after the RNC, after picking J.D. Vance. He gained a 3.2% lead. However, when you compare them to Kamala Harris, she has completely flipped the script. And now, she is ahead over Donald Trump by 2.8%. When she first replaced Joe Biden, she was only ahead by a small margin. But as time progressed, her lead just gained and gained and gained, to the point where now she is at the point where she is perfectly able to win the Electoral College. If you don't know, Democrats need about a 2.5% to 3% lead in the popular vote to win in the Electoral College. That's just how it works. And she has gotten that. If you look at every single national poll over the last 2 weeks, she has been leading in all but two. And in the two that are remaining, one has them tied, and only one poll in the last 2 weeks has Donald Trump winning. That is insane. She's up by 4%, 3%, 5%. That is increasing Joe Biden's numbers from 2020, and it is a complete reversal from how Joe Biden was doing just a month ago. You can also see the same thing in her approval ratings. Right before she replaced Joe Biden, she was down in the dumps at like 37% favorability, with a 53.5% unfavorable rating, a 17% net negative favorable rating. And following her replacing Joe Biden, she has absolutely exploded, surged to 44.2%, and her unfavorable rating has nosedived to 48.2%. She now only has a 4% net negative approval rating. Compare that to Donald Trump, where his favorable rating is 43%, which is one lower, and his unfavorable rating is 52%. That is literally like 4% higher than Kamala Harris's for unfavorable. And that goes to show plenty of Americans dislike Donald Trump. And you can see here, the majority of Americans dislike Donald Trump. So now let's go state by state, in basically every single swing state, in alphabetical order. And we'll start off with Arizona. Now, before Joe Biden dropped out, Donald Trump was leading by 5% in a state that Joe Biden won in 2020. Sure, it was by a small victory, but that state shifting to the right by 6% is insane. Even before the debate, he was still ahead by like 4% or 3%. But after Kamala Harris joined the race, sure, he was ahead at around 2%. But as she kept on gaining momentum, she flipped the script, and now she is barely ahead in Arizona. Next to Michigan. Before Joe Biden dropped out, sure, he was ahead at some points in time. But before he dropped out, Donald Trump was ahead by 2.4%. And since Joe Biden dropped out, sure, Donald Trump had the lead at one point. But Kamala Harris immediately took it back when she started picking up speed. And at this point, she's ahead by 3.4%. That is a gain of around 0.5% from Joe Biden in 2020. And things get even crazier. Nevada, same story. You see Joe Biden, before he dropped out, Trump was ahead by 5.8%, even ahead by like 7 in certain times. However, you look at after he dropped out, it has been a complete close race, a dead heat. And although it may look like Trump is ahead, you have to look at the history of Nevada polls. They actually tend to underestimate Democrats, so that could explain why he is ahead. Next, in Pennsylvania, same thing. Before Joe Biden drops out, Donald Trump is ahead by 4.4%. This is the same state that went to Joe Biden by around 1.2% in 2020. And then after Kamala Harris comes in the race, first of all, she immediately has the lead. I don't think there's a single time when she's been in the race where she didn't have the lead, but she's been growing even more. If you look at the polls, she's been ahead by 3, 4, 3. Insane, unbelievable, from some pretty reputable pollsters, I might add. This is an increase from Joe Biden's margin of victory in 2020 by around 0.9%, and it keeps going. If you look at Wisconsin, before Joe Biden drops out, Donald Trump is ahead by 2.3%, and Kamala Harris is now ahead by 3.5%. That is, I sound like a broken record, but this is insane. She's ahead by 9 in this poll. 6, 7, 4, 3, 5. Just wow. And then we can go to the Southeast. Georgia, before Joe Biden dropped out, Donald Trump was ahead by 6, in a state that Joe Biden won in 2020, a state that Raphael Warnock won in 2020 and 2022. In 2022 by 2%, Donald Trump was ahead by 6 points. And then, after Kamala Harris rejoins the race, she takes the lead in polling. She's ahead in a state where Joe Biden was down by 6%. And that doesn't just stop in Georgia. You can even look to states that Joe Biden lost in 2020. You can go to North Carolina. You see Harris literally up in certain polls. Harris up by 2, Harris up by 1, Harris tied. And the poll with Trump up by 4 is from Trafalgar Group, which is a partisan pollster. However, they're nonpartisan. It's from the Cook Political Report, which is fairly reputable. And then, today, we got a poll from Florida showing that Donald Trump is only ahead by 3, or by 2, a state that shifted to the right between 2016 and 2020, a state that voted for Ron DeSantis by 19% in 2022, and it's only going to Trump by around 2%. And her success has even been translating to Democrats down ballot. While Joe Biden was in the race and having troubles, Democrats were only barely ahead. But the second she gained that momentum, the Democrats exploded. And now they're ahead by 1 in the generic ballot. This could translate very well to helping them in congressional races. It could give them the House. It could help them in the Senate and help them not lose the majority. So let's plot this on the map. So I filled in all of the safe and likely states for either candidate, and you'll notice some notable things here. While Joe Biden was still in the race, it seemed like Republicans might have a chance in a state like New Jersey, or in a state like Virginia, or New Mexico, or Minnesota. But I haven't even put them as that close in the battleground map now that Kamala Harris is in the race. She has completely surged, and it has kept these states in the Democratic fold. Texas would be a lean state, but this is where we get to the crazy part. Kamala Harris would be up by lean margins in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania by 2 points, 3 points. And that is enough to get her to 270. Only those states, and she wins the election. And in those polls, she is up by 2, 3, 4, 5%. In Wisconsin, 9%. Even in North Carolina, you see in recent polls come out showing that she is ahead by 1% or 2% there. So this is a map just strictly based off of the polls. And you see her ahead in North Carolina by a lean distinction, which is way better than Joe Biden. Joe Biden lost North Carolina in 2020 by 1%. And now she is ahead by multiple points. In Georgia, she's ahead by a tilt margin. In Arizona, she's ahead by a tilt margin. And in Nevada, Donald Trump is surprisingly barely ahead. Although, realistically, this state will go to Kamala Harris, as they normally underestimate Democrats in their state polling. And in Florida, a state that was expected to go to Donald Trump by 7 or 8%, as it is shifting to the right extremely fast, he is only ahead by 2 or 3%. If the polls are correct, this is what the election could look like, 319 to 219. For a race that seemed like a Trump lock just a month ago, this is mind-boggling. And the Trump campaign should be questioning how they got into this position. Now, I want to clarify, this is not my prediction. This is solely based off of the polls. And I'm going to add a little caveat here. If you look at 2016 or 2020, you can see that a lot of the polls had Democrats up, had Hillary Clinton up, had Joe Biden up by crazy huge margins. It was expected to be really close in a state like Ohio or Texas in 2020. Hillary Clinton was up by like 6 or 7% in the national polls in 2016. However, in 2016, Donald Trump won. In 2020, Donald Trump only barely lost. So you've got to take all these polls with a grain of salt here. In fact, basically a mountain of salt. They are not what is going to happen. They're a snapshot into time. But if you are the Trump campaign and you look at this, you will see that this is not a good map for you. They are squandering their opportunity to win this election. And it seems like the Trump campaign is not doing enough to prevent that. When a state like Florida is lean, when a state like North Carolina is shifting to the left by 3%, that's how you know you have a fundamental problem in your campaign. Donald Trump needs to lock in. So like I said, this is not a guarantee. But as it stands right now, according to the polls, Kamala Harris would have about 319 electoral votes. She would be gaining from Joe Biden in 2020. So that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for all the success that I've seen on this channel in the last week. Thank you. I will see you in the next one.